Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to Molten Modular. Today I'm looking at a new module from Cre8Audio, the people behind the nifty case and the nifty bundle that included the cells and chips Eurorack modules, which were cool, fruity, crazy sort of chiptunes type things. This time around they're taking it, I was about to say they're taking it more seriously. Well, they are. This time they've teamed up with Pittsburgh Modular to produce a couple of really interesting and useful and feature-packed modules. The one I'm talking about today is called Mr. Filter. Mr. Filter, because it's a filter, right? I know, it's hilarious. However, that name is a tiny bit misleading because it is so much more than a filter. It's a complete thing. It kind of follows on from the idea of chips, which had a lot of stuff built into it to create an entire voice in a little module. This does something similar surrounding a filter circuit. And so actually with Mr. Filter and their other new module, the Captain Big O VCA oscillator, you kind of have an entire synthesizer voice put together with just these two things. But this video is going to focus entirely on Mr. Filter, and you can go and check out my video on Captain Big O if you like once you've watched this one. So what does it do? Well, it sort of does this sort of thing. So that sort of stuff, filtery sort of stuff, shapingy stuff, amplitude stuff, envelope-y stuff. Because within Mr. Filter is a lot more than just a filter. You get a filter, you get a VCA, and you also get quite an interesting envelope. And so within the single module, you have everything you need to run a bit of a synth voice. Just needs some kind of sound source. And in fact, with its self-oscillating resonance, it can even do a little bit of that. But what I should do is bring you in a bit closer and just take you through what it does, and then we'll have a little bit of a play and see what it sounds like in various situations. Now, it's a little bit difficult to see all this stuff in the way, but one thing I'd like to point out before I forget is that the design of the module, because there is all this patching going on, is actually thought out a little bit, because you can just get your fingers in here on that cutoff knob without too much bother whatsoever. It's really nicely placed, and then everything else, yeah, it's all very accessible. So the design choices on where they've put the patch points, etc., really works well. Just wanted to point that out. So let me take all this garbage out so we can have a look to see what we've got here. So there we are. It's interesting that this is very much in the style of Chips, their other module that came with the nifty case, whereas the Captain Big O, which is the VCO, which I will bring in just quickly there, is very much a departure, something a little bit different. Hey up, Captain, how you doing? Okay, good. Whereas this is, I don't know if you remember, the Chips had very similar styling, and this definitely, I think, reflects that more. The Captain Big O VCO is a bit more of a departure, something a little bit different, whereas this follows the vibes of the Chips in that it has a lot of functionality in a single module. However, one of the things that differs with Mr. Filter and Captain Big O is they were both designed along with Pittsburgh Modular. And so you know that that name, Pittsburgh Modular, is going to infuse a certain level of expertise and quality into these modules that perhaps the chips and cells, which were more fruity, more chiptune orientated, perhaps they didn't have that hardcore Eurorack analog vibe about them that Mr. Filter and Captain Big O certainly do. Anyway, let's have a look at what we've got. You've got a filter across the top, VCA and an envelope. Those are the basic building blocks of synthesis, and all you need is to pump in some kind of oscillator and you're away. Now, none of this is normalized, so you can treat these absolutely independently. In fact, you have to. There's no sneaky background soldering going on between the output of this and the input of this, or so on. Everything is independent. Filter, amplifier, VCA, and envelope. So in order to get them to work together, you have to physically patch them together, which is why I had all this garbage all over the top in the first place. And while it may be a little bit simpler to have it all wired internally, this is Eurorack and we like cables, so, you know, there we go. But what we'll do to start with, I'll just pump in something like a sawtooth into here and we'll have a look at the waveforms. So I'm going to take a sawtooth wave from my Honor oscillator here. And let's just run it through the filter and have a look to see what sort of stuff we get. So this is without any resonance at all. Let's put the resonance up to about 9 o'clock. $12 o'clock. $3 o'clock. And then all the way around. Now you can see the resonance, when the resonance is high, that it's really pumping out some oscillations. Now if I take out the inputs, I take out the oscillator and just leave us on the self-resonating filter, we get a rather nice sine wave. If I stick a little bit of a tune into there. Self-oscillation seems to happen at around the 2 o'clock position. And so you can play with that just by sticking control voltage into the frequency input. Back to where we were. Let's bring the resonance down a little bit. So it is a filter that wants to turn over onto itself very quickly and easily, but I'm finding that dialing it in up to about 12 o'clock gives you a little bit more in the way of subtlety, I would say. That's where I quite like it. Another thing to note is that you do get a lot of level drop off when you put the resonance up. So if I bring the resonance all the way down, you can see the size of the waveform. Size of the fundamental. As I bring the resonance up, that drops away quite dramatically. So there's no compensation put in for that drop in amplitude that you often get in other filters. Sounds nice though, really nice. There's no attenuator on the frequency input or anything like that. You just plug something in and it will do its magic. Using the cutoff control here as its kind of center point. Right, next up is the VCA, the amp in the middle here. It's just simple in, out, with CV control over the volume, which I've also got a knob for here. So to use it within the filter, you have to patch it together. Let's take the output of the filter, plug that into the input of the amplifier, and you're away. You're away. Where you're away? Why is it not away? Oh, there we go. And so you then got level control here. But of course, what you actually want to be doing is using something to control this via CV. And so, very handily, we have an envelope section here. So let's stick a gate into our envelope. Flashing away like that. And then we just need to patch stuff from the envelope into our VCA. Now, something that's quite interesting here is that the two envelope outputs are not the same. You have a slow one and a fast one, and that is actually quite useful because it gives us an opportunity to shape the filter while the VCA is still open. So you get the filter noise within the shape of the VCA before the VCA closes, if that makes sense. Or of course you can do it the other way around, so you have slightly less filter change going on because the VCA closes down before the filter closes down. Either way, you have two envelope responses, and that makes it a more versatile thing. If they were both the same, you'd end up having the same sound all the time, whereas this gives you that little bit more versatility. And let me show you what they look like if I plug them into our scope here. So as I hit a note, open the gate, then release it, you can see that they are running at slightly different times. Let's increase that release so you can see that a bit better. And it's also true on the attack. I'll show that on stacked in case that's easier to see. Like so, and we can use these differing envelopes in order to shape the VCA and the filter differently. And that's pretty cool. So let's do some of that. So I'm going slow into the VCA and fast into the filter. As I say, in order to capture the entire movement of the filter within the envelope of the VCA. Does that make sense? Yeah, possibly. So let me plug in the keyboard. If I swap those round, so it's now slower on the filter and faster on the amplitude, it will just give us a slightly different approach. And so you can hear that as the VCA is closing before the filter gets the end of its sweep, it sort of cuts it off. Not in a bad way. I'm not saying one way is better or one way is something else. It's just a different sound. Now that can be different, of course, once you perhaps speed things up a little bit. So at the moment we're still on slow on the filter, so it's just slightly dragging behind the VCA. Then I'll swap those around again. But what's brilliant about all this is that you have it all packed into here. I'm not reaching about into other places, not having to find other modules to plug in. It's all happening within this little space. And so often, well, more often than not, this is exactly what you would patch up. You would patch your filter into your VCA, and then you would envelope both your VCA and the cutoff of your filter. That's what you would do. That's what you tend to do. 9 times out of 10, that's what you're doing. And so to have those things all ready for you is very convenient. Now the other side of that, of course, is that you don't have to play by those rules at all. I can stick in an LFO from over here if I want. Let's use the output of my favourite oscillator at the moment, the Castor and Pollux, which combines 2 oscillators in a very sort of Roland-esque way and makes them mess with each other as they're playing, which is delightful. I'm also going to take the output of the black sequencer over here just to give us a bit of a variation into the tune and to the gating. So there you have it, Mr. Filter. It's a filter, it's a VCA, it's an envelope. It's interesting. Yeah, it is. It's good fun. It's nicely compact and full of enough features to have this be just like the second module in your rack. And you've got an entire voice going on. I mean, I can't stress enough how useful it is to put all those things together. Now, of course, if you've got a massive Eurorack, then perhaps you're duplicating up on things. But for someone with a small rig or looking to expand or just really needs good value for money for every single HP that they fill, then Mr. Filter is undoubtedly a good choice. Filter sounds nice. It's very controllable, very resonant. The way that the envelope interacts with it, I think is nice and is doing exactly the sort of thing that you're probably going to be after ultimately. Now, it doesn't have masses of controls. There's no additional FM input. There's no other way to wobble the filter while the envelope is going, unless you mult up some other modules to put that kind of modulation into it. But there's no attenuation on the CV input, and there's no additional one for additional fun. So the filter, control-wise, is very, very basic. But again, it's going to do the stuff that you're mostly going to be doing. The VCA works fine. There's no different response curves or anything like that. So again, simple, straightforward, doing the thing that you would normally be doing. And the envelope with its slow and fast output, I think, is a useful thing to have put in there. It's well judged, I think, so that you can run the entire module by itself without any other external influences at all. or not, of course, because you can take these out and use them in other things, because you have 3 independent modules within there with no other background shenanigans, and so you don't have to worry about whether how you're using it. You can use it however you wish, and it's all out there on the front panel. Now, Mr. Filter is something in the region of $100, I believe, and for that you get a heck of a lot of Eurorack. And this, combined with Captain Big O, is an entire high quality Pittsburgh modular designed synthesizer voice for a couple of $100 for the pair. That's pretty awesome, that is. It's pretty awesome. Oh, and one thing I completely forgot to mention is that there's some kind of Easter egg built into Mr. Filter. I can't quite get my handle on exactly what it is, so I'll just leave that out there as a little bit of mystery, and see if you can find out what that is. So there you go. I hope that was useful. If you find these videos entertaining or interesting or in any way helpful, then do consider subscribing, sharing it about the place, tell your friends, or come and join us on Patreon. That's always nice. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes.